Welcome to the Real Appreciation Podcast. I am David Clair Bennett, and with me today is the host of one of the most successful wrestling podcasts of all time, Solomonster Sounds Off, as well as the host of Tuesday Night Titans. He's also known for being commissioner for House of Glory Wrestling. Please welcome back to the show, Jason Solomonster Solomon.
Second time here on the show. I'm very happy to be back.
You're a two-timer. You were our first two-time guest on this show.
I feel so special.
You're going to piss Maven off.
Well, we won't tell him, but I think the first time, what was it, 9 minutes? I think we went?
Yep, 9 minutes.
Yeah, we had a cap, but there's no cap this time.
I got Zoom Premium now.
We upgraded.
First and foremost, man, I'm so glad we are doing this episode, as you said, the right way. For those who may not know, Jason was, as we were talking about, originally the very first guest, the debut guest on Real Appreciation, but we've had some Zoom issues we talked about that cut us short. So now we're here, we're doing this the right way on Zoom Premium, which is not a plug, but thank you again for agreeing to come back on.
I enjoyed the conversation, brief as it was last time, and yeah. When you extended the invite, I said, of course, we'll have to do it one more time.
Well, man, since then, this morning, we reached 2 million viewers in just 3 months since doing that. Incredible stuff.
That's quite an accomplishment.
I don't got Solomonster numbers yet, but one day.
You'll give it time.
Well, I want to take us back to the year of 2007. The first iPhone was officially released to the public. Bob Barker, former host of Monday Night Raw, Bob Barker, hosted the final episode of The Price is Right, and somewhere in New York, Jason Solomon was starting a brand new podcast entitled Solomonster Sounds Off. Now, fast forward to now, nearly 17 years later, here we are, man. You've become one of the most successful podcasters in the world, and it's been a long time, and I'm giving you your well-deserved flowers. So thank you for all that you do, man. On behalf of many others, but selfishly for me as well, you've gotten me through some tough shit in my life with your content, so I'm honored to call you one of my inspirations for the show. Even more honored to call you a friend, so just wanted to say thank you and give you your flowers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. It's 17 years this month, which is kind of crazy. It wasn't anything that I expected when I started it, but here we are, and I get a lot of messages like that from people. It's one of the cool parts, I think, about doing the show, is hearing from people who listen on a regular basis, and it just helps them pass the time, or sometimes they may be going through some stuff. They want to take their mind off things, and wrestling is just the easiest way to do that. So it's very cool.
What would you say in your 16 years, almost 17, of doing this show that you're the most proud of?
I just think building it up to where it is today, we have our own little community, really. I can't even say little. We have a community of people who you see them on YouTube, on the streams every week. I hear from them, via email and tweets and on social media. And just the consistency of it and how I've been able to kind of build relationships with these people, and some more than others. Some I've met in person, some I consider genuine friends, but we're all kind of friends in this community, and it didn't exist before. So I sometimes take a step back, even if it's on Facebook, in the Facebook group, or I take a step back and I say, man, this is something that didn't exist before. And just by doing this show every week, we've been able to bring people together for one common cause, really, which is professional wrestling. We talk about all sorts of things, but wrestling is sort of the common thread. It's just a very cool thing, I think, between building that community and also creating something that I could make a living off of, on a full-time basis, which, again, was not something I anticipated doing at the beginning of all this, but to create something out of nothing, I think, is a very cool feeling.
Yes, it's a very cool thing. I'm starting to understand what you're talking about a little personally just by doing my own show. It's so surreal.
Yeah, and when you start to see success, and it's not an easy thing, it takes time, but when you start to see success, that's when it really hits you. Like, okay, this is pretty cool, and it makes you hungry for more. So it's almost like a validation. When you get that first little bit of validation, you want more of it. And it motivates you and it keeps you going. And yeah, I'm not surprised that you feel the same way. I think most content creators would say the same thing.
At one point in time, I was very interested in doing my own show, and I didn't know how to go about doing anything, let alone doing it the right way. And I like to think I've caught on a little bit, but for those out there who have something to give with their voice or their talents or their ability to make a name for themselves, what advice would you give to someone serious about making a name for themselves in the podcasting world today?
Well, it's a lot more difficult just because there's so many podcasts now. When I started doing it, they existed, but you didn't have as many as you have today. So it can be difficult, I think, to break through the noise. But I think if anybody has a passion to talk about something, it doesn't have to be wrestling or sports, but whatever it may be. In your case, you're interviewing very interesting people, in some cases far more interesting than me. Whether it's, movie related or what have you. But if you have a passion for something, it doesn't take a whole lot to get started. You really don't need to break the bank as far as equipment is concerned. Everybody is an amateur filmmaker now if you have a smartphone.
Yeah.
But you invest in a camera and a microphone, and you just have a plan for what you want to talk about. You turn the camera on or you turn the microphone on if it's audio only, and you just go for it. And you will get better over time because with that repetition, you'll get more comfortable at it. And if it's something that you're really passionate about, then it'll just happen over time. There are a lot of people who I think, oh, I could do that. I want to have a show. Maybe they just want to make money doing it. They want to get sponsors, whatever their motivation is. But if it's something you really don't have a passion for, I guarantee you it's not going to last very long. You can find a graveyard full of podcasts that started and ended after one or two episodes. It's just littered with shows like that. But the ones who really commit to it and put the work in, you will be successful. It just takes time.
Yeah, man. Most people only get to, 4 or 5 podcasts. This is going to be episode 30.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, if it's something that you're really serious about, then you'll get to 30, 40, 50, 100 episodes, and it won't even feel like it. You'll look back and go, holy shit, I didn't realize I just did my 100th show. I've done a lot more than the 888 sound offs that I've done, if you count all the YouTube stuff. Yeah. But I just wrapped up, episode 888 of my show on Sunday, and I took a moment because I realized how close I am to 1,000. And it's just crazy. It doesn't feel like it, but it's something that I still have fun doing. It's a lot of work. It's a huge time commitment, but I enjoy doing it. It's sort of a creative outlet for me. I look at it that way too. And there could be another 800 that go by and it probably still won't feel like it. So that's the difference between the people who commit to it and the people who I think have this idea in their mind, oh, this is going to be great. And then they do it and they realize, oh, this is a lot of work. Like, I don't want to do this every week. I have weeks like that. I'm like, I don't want to do this week, but you do it. And the people who don't, they fall off.
Yeah, man. Like, I think it's so surreal to me that I've been able to make this a part-time job at this time. Like, that's crazy. I've interviewed so many celebrities and I get paid for it. It never will feel real.
No, and the reason that you do and others won't is because you put out a good product, right? If you put out a good product or you have a presentation that people like, or your voice, you sound a certain way, then you'll be successful. Because some people just aren't very good at it. They're not comfortable or they don't have the voice for it. They're too nervous to be on camera. And I mean, I went through all that at the beginning. Yeah. Some people can overcome that. Some people, they just can't. They're just not comfortable, in their own skin. But if you are putting out a product, whatever it is, that is quality, people will pick up on that. People will gravitate towards that. It may take time. But if you're putting out something good, I promise you, people will find you.
I absolutely needed to hear that, too, with some numbers dipping I've been going through. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, but that's normal. Yeah. It's funny. You can become a slave to the numbers, and it could be your worst enemy. Like this time of year for me, looking at YouTube, let's say, this is typically one of the bigger times a year for me. So like November. I would say November tends to be my second or third biggest month out of the entire year. It's not the case this month. Yeah, this month it's sort of like an aberration where it's like, oh, all right. But things kind of feel a little dead right now. And then I look ahead and I say, well, we're heading into, Raw moving to Netflix and the Royal Rumble is coming up and WrestleMania is going to be here soon. And you see those ups and downs. You see the highs and lows. You just have to accept it. You can't let it ruin your day because you will have those peaks and valleys. That's normal.
Well, something that I always love to see is, and you talked about this earlier a little bit, when you go live, and I'm usually always at every single live stream, but the amazing community that you've managed to build on your live streams. Go ahead and talk to me about when you first noticed that you were starting to garner a little bit of a following to the point where you felt comfortable enough to start live streaming on YouTube.
I really was starting the live streaming consistently during the pandemic. So 2020 is when I started. I think I started doing it weekly at that point. And I was very late as far as the YouTube video live stream stuff. I should have started years before. I just, there were different reasons I didn't do it. So I kind of got into that aspect of it very late, even though I've been doing my show since 2007. And it was pretty quickly thereafter. You know, we were covering AEW Dynamite every week, and then we started to incorporate SmackDown. I didn't start going live after Raw on Monday nights until 2 years ago.
I don't blame
because the show was awful. I mean, it was a horrendous television show on many weeks. And it was bad enough that I had to talk about it on the weekend. And it wasn't an ideal situation because I was waiting almost a week to talk about the show. By the time some people listen to the podcast, they may not listen on Sunday. You know, they may listen on Monday or Tuesday. And my Raw review was a week outdated, but people still tuned into it because they wanted to hear me talk about the show. Once Vince McMahon got out of the way the first time, and you could see the improvements in the quality of the show. It's like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to give it another shot, and we'll go live every Monday, and we'll see how this goes. Of course, once you start doing that, you can't just stop. So now, you know, we're live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. But it was pretty early on that I started to see the same faces popping up in the live chat, and they would support in various ways. And you just sort of build that relationship with people, and you have fun with it. And everyone has their own personality. I could just look at the live chat, and you know, some people, it's like, okay, oh, he's here, she's here, and it's like, how you doing? And they would chime in and let you know what was going on in their life. And maybe they only watch AEW. They don't watch Raw. So you're not going to see them again until next Wednesday. And that happened pretty quickly. And it's the same thing today. You see a lot of the same faces. Some of them aren't there every stream because they may not be an AEW fan. They may not be a WWE fan. But it's pretty consistent. And then, of course, you bring in new people, which we're doing all the time. And it's just fun, you know, because I do my shows alone, which is another unique thing about what I do. I would say a lot of podcasts have a co-host, right? At least one. And that's cool because you have somebody that you can bounce things off of or debate them and have, you know, back and forth and maybe let them take some of the load. It's harder when you're a one-man shop. Right. And I do that by choice. So I'm controlling everything. I have to do a show while I'm paying attention to what's happening in the chat, while I'm paying attention, oh, this stopped working. It's a lot. You know, what can go wrong will go wrong. But I love it. And having those people there, I'm doing the show by myself, but I'm really not, right? Because I have these other people.
Yeah, I've just started going live and starting to see what you're talking about.
It's a lot. It's a lot to pay attention to. You got to make sure that this is set a certain way and this is working. And you have to pay attention to 3 or 4 different things at once. But, you know, the more you do it, you just get used to it and you get comfortable.
Well, how has your approach to podcasting overall changed since you began in 2007, especially as you were talking about earlier, the wrestling media space gets seemingly more and more crowded? I think I remember maybe like Art of Wrestling was big around that time, but that might have even been after you.
Cabana started his show. It had to be after me.
Maybe it was 2010. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was probably within maybe 3 or 4 years of me starting my show, maybe 2 years. And he was one of the early ones, and he really was an innovator in the space as far as, you know, he really built his name up independently. He created the show. He would interview other independent wrestlers, and it just took off. And obviously the Punk show became the biggest episode he ever did, but also the most controversial. Art of Wrestling was one, and you didn't see too many wrestler hosted shows back then. He had to be one of the first. Now every wrestler has a show, and every retired wrestler has a show, and I think 97% of them are probably working with Conrad Thompson. But you know, this just wasn't a thing back then. You know, you had fans, you had fan hosted shows. Now, like I said, everybody has a show.
Yeah.
and it could be hard to kind of break through the noise or figure out who you want to listen to. People ask me sometimes, they go, okay, what are the top 5 or 10 podcasts you listen to? And they're shocked when I tell them I don't really listen to podcasts. I mean, obviously I have friends in the space and I may check out what they're talking about, but I don't listen to podcasts usually. And a lot of it has to do with just my time and my schedule and what I'm doing in the course of a day. So I can recommend other shows, but I can't honestly tell you that I spend too much time listening to them. Part of it may just be that because I do so many shows, I just need that time away from it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just all you're doing, 24 hours a day is just talking or listening to wrestling, and it'll drive you nuts. Take my word for it.
What do you feel are some of the cons of being a podcaster? We always go ahead and talk about the pros, but what are some of the cons that people should know too?
I think just it's a huge time commitment that people just don't realize. I talk about the flagship show that I do every Sunday. That's still the main show that I do.
Yeah.
And I think some people believe, okay, he just maybe throughout the week he may jot down a few ideas, and then on Sunday he just sits down and just starts recording. And they don't realize the work. I do things a certain way, but there's a lot of prep that goes into that. There's a lot of note taking and research because I also tend to do a lot of segments covering wrestling history sometimes. I do a mailbag, so I want the show to be interactive. I'll tell people, write in, send in questions. I'll try to answer them on the show. And my inbox, like right now, my main inbox uh, has things forwarded to it from the Solomonster one because I have a separate account just for that. Everything gets forwarded to my main account, so I'm at least aware of uh, what's coming into me. And I've got 8,800 emails
Wow.
sitting in my inbox. I can't possibly go through all of it. It's overwhelming, but I spend a lot of time going through that, and that takes time. So it takes up the entire week. And I do the shows at night because the shows air on TV at night and then I go live. That's just the way it is. So it's like people ask, when do you have free time? I go, I don't. You try to squeeze it in where you can, but I do my show on the weekends. So my weekends are typically filled with getting ready for the show that I sit down and record on Sunday. And now there's so many shows. I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, you've got all the weekly shows. We're going to get more and more pay-per-view shows.
Yeah.
It's just nonstop. So you tend to feel the need to cover everything, or else you have that what do they call FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Fear of missing out. You don't want to miss a stream. Plus, if you miss one, you'll never hear the end of it. People will want to know, where were you? So you really do. You feel like I can't miss a show because now I'm relying on the income from this as well. This is not just a hobby.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I don't go to as many shows. I used to go to WrestleMania every year. I think we all, my friends and I, we just kind of got tired of that. We had to take a break from that. But I don't go to too many shows, especially the really super big ones, because I feel like I need to be here. I need to be at home base so I could do my thing, or else, that'll be a hit in the income that you bring in. So that's a huge drawback. And it can, take its toll as far as the amount of sleep that I get. You just have to find a way to manage it. Otherwise, it'll just consume you. So I would say that's probably the biggest drawback.
Hey man, this show is very big on gratitude and appreciation, and we tried this last time. It's something I pay homage to Chris Van Vliet. I think you were a guest on his show, right?
Yeah. Chris is a friend.
And every day when I wake up before I go to bed, I also say 3 things I'm grateful for. So this time I'm going to ask you, what are the 3 things that you are grateful for?
I would say grateful for friends, family, and the show. Honestly, for everything that we just talked about, all the other people I've been able to meet, and in some cases, I've made new friends through the show and connections in life. So I'm grateful for, my family has gotten smaller over the years. I lost both my parents and grandparents many, many years ago. So, I'm close with my brother, and then we have some extended family as far as like cousins and stuff. So the family that we do have left, I'm grateful for them. because I don't have a lot of close family left anymore. So I think you learn to appreciate what you do have when you're in that situation. My friends, very grateful for their friendship and their feedback and all that they offer. And then, like I said, the podcast and what I have been able to create out of it it's changed my life. It's not even hyperbole to say that. It really has. It's like my life would be very different were it not for this. What it would look like, I don't know. Would it be better? Would it be worse? Who knows? But I'm grateful to have been successful in creating this thing that brings me great joy in my life. And I would say those are the three things I'm most grateful for.
Absolutely. Hey, where can people find you online?
Everywhere. On social media, though, I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Solomonster. Everybody told me I got to get on Blue Sky. So there's so many social media platforms. It's like you gotta post everywhere, but I'm on there too. The Solomonster. If you go on YouTube, just type in the name of the show, Solomonster Sounds Off. Over 82,000 subscribers and climbing. So you can subscribe and find me there multiple times every week. Or type in the name of the show into your favorite podcast platform. And if you've never listened before, give it a listen. I think you may enjoy it.
I'm David Clair Bennett. He's Jason, Solomonster Sounds Off, Solomon himself. Follow Jason on social media. Help him get to 100,000 subscribers. Be sure to watch him every Tuesday night as well on Tuesday Night Titans with JD. Every Sunday on the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast. Dude, thank you so much again for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.